afternoon, and welcome to the 39th annual presentation of the Judy Lopez Memorial Award for Children's Literature. We're so glad you joined us for the virtual celebration of this prestigious national award. I'm Hope Anita Smith, children's book author and recipient of the Coretta Scott King John Steptoe New Talent Award, the Myra Cone Livingston Award for Distinguished Work of Poetry, the Bank Street College of Education Claudia Lewis Award for Poetry, and I am so pleased to be able to say that I am the 2004 medalist of the Judy Lopez Award for my very first book, The Way a Door Closes. It is the story of a family in crisis. A father loses his job and in his despair at not being able to take care of his family, leaves them. His 14-year-old son, CJ, shares his thoughts in a series of poems that chronicle the family's experience. Winning the Judy Lopez Award was, as the kids used to say, everything. I was honored my work was recognized by an organization that had a vested interest in good books and getting them into the hands of as many children as possible. I'm excited to be a part of this year's event, celebrating authors Christina Wyman, Michelle Cuevas, Tara Derman, and Sarah Everett. Their stories travel from an island chain to Anytown, USA, to Brooklyn, New York, and even the depths of the mind. They plunge into unspeakable situations which, once revealed, cannot and should not be ignored or covered up. They celebrate gutsy characters doing what they need to do and even celebrating that very thing that makes them an object of ridicule to their peers. They celebrate the power of resilience. During our time together, we'll get a sneak peek into the author's writing process, their favorite spots, family histories, and if we're lucky, we'll find out if it's really true that pets make the author. Here's what I know for sure. You are destined to have an enjoyable time. Before we get underway, we want to thank the selection committee for their time and consideration. Every year, the committee reads the many, many nominated books. They meet and select the best of the best literature in the middle grade category for 9 to 12 years of age, published by a U.S. citizen in the year prior. Thank you, Selection Committee. Now, let's start the show with a look back at the legacy of Judy Lopez and the history of the Women's National Book Association.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 39th Annual Judy Lopez Memorial Award for Children's Literature. I am Elise Marie Collins, President of the Women's National Book Association, and I am honored to be here with you today. As a mother and an advocate for equity and diversity in literature, especially for children and young adults, the significance of the Judy Lopez Memorial Award deeply resonates with me. The WNBA has a rich 100-plus year history of including women authors, booksellers, librarians, and women involved in all aspects of publishing in our organization. Many of these women were not always welcomed in the literary world. And today, we continue to break barriers and promote inclusion in every aspect of the book industry. The Women's National Book Association was established in 1917, before women even had the right to vote in the United States. Our founding principle is that books have power, and those involved in their creation gain strength by uniting. This belief has driven our mission, and today, over a century later, we serve members across the country who all work towards a shared goal of elevating books and the voices behind them. I previously served as president of the San Francisco chapter, which was founded by another pioneering woman, librarian Effie Lee Morris. She was deeply committed to literacy for children, particularly those in underserved communities, and children who learn differently, as well as children who are differently abled. It is through the legacies of women like Effie Lee Morris and Judy Lopez that I've come to appreciate the groundwork they laid for a more equitable, diverse, and inclusive literary landscape. While we've made significant progress, our work is far from over. As president of WNBA National, I am dedicated to advancing the vision of our founders by championing equity in publishing for women, and particularly ensuring that the voices of women from marginalized communities are heard and elevated. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Judy Lopez and the history of this award. Judy was a bookseller and a buyer for the California State University bookstore. She was also one of the founders of the Los Angeles chapter of WNBA. Judy recognized the critical importance of developing a love for books in children, particularly children aged 9 through 12. After Judy's passing in 1985, her family sought to honor her memory by establishing the Judy Lopez Foundation to support this award, ensuring that her legacy and the commitment to young readers would continue. Judy's legacy is especially meaningful to me as I've had the privilege of discovering how deeply books can change a young person's life trajectory. The WNBA believes in the transformative power of books, and we strive to put high-quality literature in the hands of young readers, just as Judy did throughout her career. Each year, this award honors books published in the United States during the preceding year, written for readers aged 9 through 12. The award-winning title receives a specially engraved bronze medal designed by sculptor Alex Shagan, and up to 3 honor titles are selected. I'd also like to extend a warm welcome to everyone here today. Welcome. I want to also express my deep gratitude to the Judy Lopez Memorial Award Committee and the readers who worked tirelessly to read all the books and select this year's winners. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the afternoon.
What would you do if you knew the world was going to end? That is exactly the question Kemi has to wrestle with in the amazing novel, The Probability of Everything by Sarah Everett. Kemi lives with her loving family, her father, mother, sister, and soon-to-be sibling. She is a math enthusiast and is really into probability. That is how she makes sense of the world around her. But looking up at the sky, Kemi and the rest of the world see an asteroid that is heading on a collision course with Earth. There is no hope for survival, and because of that, Kemi decides to make a time capsule for the next inhabitants of Earth to know who they were. She has a mission, a purpose before the world ends. She is scrambling to find items that her family members want to add to the time capsule that sum up who they are as a family and as individuals. She does not want to be erased, she wants to be seen. As we go on this journey with Kemi, we realize that she is the only one with a sense of urgency. She is the only one concerned about this asteroid and how the world is ending. Her mother is depressed and locked herself in a room. Her father is around, but not really. Her little sister doesn't seem to understand the severity of the situation, and her friends are still going to school. What is happening? That is the question Kemi and we, as the readers, are asking as we go along. When we finally get to the truths that Kemi has to face, we are just as devastated as she is. A story of one girl in her journey to face the impossible and come to terms with the ending of her life as she knows it. The committee was impressed with the probability of everything. We really enjoyed Kemi's story, and seeing her struggle through this impossible grief was so touching and real. We felt as if we were experiencing every moment with her. The twist was so unexpected that it left us breathless, having to take a moment to gather our thoughts and go back to figure out what we missed in those little details that the author so craftily put in. This book wowed us. The committee is proud to name The Probability of Everything a 2024 Judy Lopez Memorial Honor Book.
everyone, I'm Sarah Everett and I'm the author of The Probability of Everything. I currently live in Western Canada where I spend a lot of time reading, writing, going on walks, and wishing for summer. I started writing when I was a kid. First of all, I was a big reader. I read big books, small books, funny books, sad books, and eventually I decided to try my hand at writing my own books. The first book I wrote was absolutely terrible, but I really fell in love with writing and I've been doing it ever since. Probability is my middle grade debut, which means it's the first middle grade book I've ever written, though not the first book I've ever published. I call it a big-hearted story about family, life, math, and science. To be more specific, Probability is about an 11-year-old girl named Kemi who loves science, loves math, loves probability. Unfortunately, there is a giant asteroid headed for Earth, and Kemi decides to make a time capsule and put in all the things that are special about her family so they can be remembered by the next Earthlings. Since I've written Probability, I've gotten a lot of questions about what I would put in a time capsule. So I have a few things to show you. I'd put in a tennis ball because I'm a huge fan of tennis. I love watching and playing. I'd put in this picture of my dog. I'd put in a copy of Charlotte's Web, which was my favorite book as a kid and is still one of my favorite books today. And I'd put in this special copy of Probability that was given to me by the Governor General of Canada. I think the cover is so pretty. I think I would also like to put in some of the notes, reactions, and comments I've gotten from readers, as well as from those who have been kind enough to nominate and honor Probability in some way, especially the Judy Lopez Memorial Committee and the Women's National Book Association. When I heard about the award, I was inspired to learn more about Judy Lopez and everything she did for children's books and literacy, and everything the Judy Lopez Memorial Award continues to do and stand for. So thank you to the committee for this enormous honor. I leave you with this quote from Probability. The end of anything, even the world, even us, is just a change. Kind of like water turning to ice or rearranging furniture. We just become something different. This means we don't have to be afraid.
Hello, my name is Marcy Drexler, and I'm delighted to introduce this year's Judy Lopez Memorial Honor Book Award winner, The Dreamatics by Michelle Cuevas. Welcome to the topsy-turvy world of dreams, where a ragtag bunch of theater folk nightly puts on a show. The unconscious life of one Luna Grand, aged 10 3/4. By day, Luna lives a happy, everything-filled life with her 2 fathers and her beloved dog, Murph. At night, the members of the Lunarian Grand Theater troupe take over. Calling themselves the Dreamatics, the resourceful thespians use the comings and goings of Luna's waking hours to create the discombobulated, sometimes bizarre, sometimes scary visions we know as dreams, but with a distinctly theatrical touch. Posters of upcoming attractions adorn the Lunarian Grand's walls, bearing titles like Luna's New Crush at School, or more abstractly and ominously, The Snowball of Rejection. And there's that old standby, Luna forgets the test. Often, Luna dreams about her best friend, Murph. Like Luna, we're in for a wild ride, filled with improbable sights and sounds, which begs the eternal questions, where do dreams come from? What do they mean? And perhaps most important for Luna and for readers of the Dreamatics, why do we dream in the first place? Our guide to the madcap, joyful world of Luna's unconscious is a self-described lowly stagehand called Dormir. In the Dreamatics, as in dreams, every detail has a deeper meaning. Dormir's name is just the tip of the iceberg. For the reader who loves inside jokes, the Dreamatics is, well, a dream come true. Life in the Lunarian Grand and in Luna's dreams rolls merrily along until one day a tragedy shatters Luna's idyllic life. The deliciously unpleasant bad dreams take over the Lunarian Grand and replace Luna's mostly enjoyable dreams with nightmares so disturbing that our devastated heroine refuses to sleep. Luna's parents, and a kindly therapist, try to help, but it becomes clear that only the Dreamatics can restore Luna's formerly sweet dream life and give her back her happy, everything-filled life. But how? What follows is a funny, tender, and heart-wrenchingly realistic portrait of a young person's struggle to bear a loss which seems unbearable. Even in its darkest moments, the Dreamatics never stops delighting us with jokes and crazy flights of fantasy, so it's easy to overlook the serious messages embedded within its action-filled pages. We learn, for example, that heartbreak, if faced head-on and with courage, can strengthen us, that love is necessary for healing, and that in a crisis, every individual, no matter how lowly, can make all the difference. Finally, the Dramatics tells us that happy memories can comfort us for the rest of our lives. Make no mistake, there's a lot going on in the Dramatics. Cuevas' meditation on love and loss is also a swashbuckling tribute to the magic of theater, a bravura display of imagination and wit, and a cascade of sparkling wordplay. But the book's greatest gift to the reader may be the front row seat it gives us to an extraordinary relationship, the bond between Luna and Murph. A love so strong that even death cannot diminish it. The mutual devotion of these two best friends personifies the beauty and meaning that our four-legged companions bring to our lives. And the Dramatics reminds us that life, however painful, always holds the promise of beauty and meaning, as long as we are able to remember how it feels to love and be loved in return. Congratulations, Michelle.
Hello, I am author and illustrator Michelle Cuevas. Well, actually, I'm author and illustrator Michelle Cuevas. And I am puppet Michelle Cuevas. Hello. I'm going to ask some questions. First is, tell us a bit about yourself. As you said, I am an author, sometimes illustrator, of books, picture books, and novels. I think they're for all ages. They're shelved in the children's book section. And I like to think of my books kind of like if Pixar movies were books. And I live in the Berkshires in Massachusetts, near the forest, with my husband and our two dogs, Indy and Fable, and they are Bernese Mountain Dogs, and they each weigh about 120 pounds. And yeah, very big. And we also have one elderly albino pet rat that we adopted last year. Wonderful. What are some of your favorite things? Good question. I love poetry. I love vintage dresses. I love fun headwear. We have the same taste. I really like travel. I like British baking shows. I've tried falconry. I like painting watercolors. And I love the Muppets. Aren't I a Muppet? No, actually, you're a puppet for copyright reasons, obviously. Okay, so when did you discover a love of writing stories? Were you always an author? Yeah, I think I was. My first book, I think I wrote when I was about 8 years old, and it was called The Life of a Shoe, I think. And it was about a talking shoe. And I got that idea because the front part of a shoe you call the tongue. So I thought maybe they could talk. And pivoting a bit, we're here to talk about a book called The Dramatics. What is that about? Have you not got a chance to read it? No, I've been very busy. Okay, well, that's fine. The Dramatics, this book here, is about a magical theater called the Lunarian Grand, and it acts out the nightly dreams of a girl named Luna until tragedy strikes in the real world, and she she suffers a loss. And so in the theater world, the bad dreams take over. And so a stagehand named Dormir has to work to kind of set things right. Wow, so what inspired this story? I think it came from the place where, a lot of magical ideas come from. Ah, yes, the world of imagination. No, actually, the world of anxiety. I started taking anxiety meds a couple of years back, and they can give you really wild dreams when you first start them. So that was happening, and I kind of would wake up thinking, like, where does my mind get these things? Where does this come from? These ideas. And I was like, where do they come from? I've always really liked writing things about, systems that we all know about, but we don't really know about. And so, yeah, that was really interesting, fun. It also had a bit to do with my dogs and kind of the fear of, losing them someday. I think writing can be a great way to kind of, work through some of those feelings. Lovely. Now, this is a very serious question. Were you always a theater nerd? I was, yes, thank you. I was also in the marching band. Yeah, I remember my first play. I was in 8th grade, and I played Amanda Chicken Wing in Murder in the Magnolias. Wow. And this book sounds magical. What are your feelings about magic? Good question. Yeah, this book was the first kind of magic I wrote. I've done magical realism, but in this one, a magic system needs rules. So I decided my one rule was, is it cozy? So all the magic is the kind you kind of want to curl up with on a rainy day, a fuzzy blanket, and there are things like, there's a closet with jars full of weather. There's Friday flavored popcorn. There's a haunted pencil. There's a very talkative teapot. It was really fun to write. I would like to write magic again. Great. And I have one more question, and it's just, who are all of these people watching us? Oh yeah. So we're here because the Dramatics won an award called the Judy Lopez Award. And so these are the committee members and the other winners, and perhaps their friends and family. And yeah, it's a really great award because it's for middle grade books, which are one of my favorite kind of books because they can be anything. They can be magical and down to earth and philosophical. And so it's really a huge honor to win this award. I had no idea that I had won an award. I would just like to thank a few people. I'd like to thank, obviously my agent. I'd like to thank the person who sewed me. I'd like to thank the material felt. What else? I'd like to thank Jim Henson, I guess. Thank you so much. Mwah, mwah. Thanks. Bye.
Though Tara Dearman has written several books for middle readers, my first exposure to her incredible writing and outstanding storytelling was from reading The Girl from Earth's End, and what an utter and absolute joy it was. I love this book. But before I expound on the book, let me tell you just a little about Tara. Tara is an author of both middle grade books as well as a picture book. Her middle grade books include the All Four Stars series, The Great Hibernation, and The Girl from Earth's End. And her picture book is called Desert Girl, Monsoon Boy. All of Tara's books have earned high praise and have landed on many best of lists of all kinds. Book of the Month lists, Editor's Pick, Bestsellers list, Best Book of the Year, among many others. She has also written several plays and screenplays produced here and abroad, and she has won several awards for them. Tara is a world traveler, having visited over 90 countries, and being inspired by her travels, her experiences inform her writing. Her characters are, quote, kids with strong passion and big questions about the world, unquote, and they have a bit of Tara and her life experiences in them. Her website introduces her as an author, eater, and adventurer. But I want to talk to you more about The Girl from Earth's End. There is so much to love in this book. First and foremost, there's her beautifully vivid and deeply emotive writing that tightly weaves a story with elements of fantasy, adventure, humor, and realism, and which page by page compels us to read. And then there's her outstanding character development, introducing us to a wonderfully diverse group of people who are so completely and fully developed, so real and so likable and uniquely individual, and who we get to know well and love. Their feelings and motivations, behaviors, and conversations are so very relatable. From the beginning, Tara pulls us into the story where we meet Henna, the lovable main character, and her two papas, who are the only inhabitants on the small and remote island of Earth's End. From here, the story unfolds richly and creatively and builds to a moving and heartfelt conclusion. Throughout the story, we see Henna grow and learn some incredibly important lessons about perseverance, friendship, bravery, loyalty, hope, acceptance, and grief. This book is heartwarming, hopeful, and wonderfully textured, beautifully written, and yes, even heartbreaking at times. I cried through the last few chapters where the beauty and depth of the human spirit was fully and touchingly expressed. And when I finished reading, I sat in awe of and in gratitude to Tara for writing this book. After reading this book, I am so eager to go out and read Tara's other books. And now, indeed, it is my profound pleasure to introduce you to Tara Dearman, author of The Girl from Earth's End, one of this year's Judy Lopez Memorial Award honor books.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tara Dearman, author of books for young readers, and I'm so thrilled today to accept a Judy Lopez Memorial Book Award honor for my novel, The Girl from Earth's End. I'd like to offer a huge thanks to the selection committee for this award and a huge congratulations to my fellow honorees, Christina, Michelle, and Sarah. I'd also like to thank my publisher, Candlewick Press, my agent, Amy Joan Paquette, and especially my editor, Christine Engels, for all their hard work and joyful collaboration in bringing this book into the world. The Girl from Earth's End is my fifth novel. I worked on it for 5 years before it was published, and it is absolutely the book of my heart. It is also a book that is intentionally inclusive of multiple queer identities, and in a time when many children's books featuring queer characters are being challenged around the country, it's especially meaningful to me that the Judy Lopez Awards Committee has chosen to lift this story up. The Girl from Earth's End tells the story of Henna, a 12-year-old expert gardener who lives on a remote island with her two papas. Henna is so good with plants that she can even pull half-drowned ones out of the sea and nurse them back to health. But when one of her papas falls seriously ill, Henna realizes that she will have to look beyond the borders of her island for the first time to try to help him. She learns about a mysterious, possibly magical plant called Nightwalker that she thinks will save his life. However, Nightwalker is all but extinct, as are the orange trees that it grows on symbiotically. The only known seeds for both plants are shut up tight in a seed repository on the faraway island of Santa Vita, on the grounds of an exclusive botanical boarding school called St. Basil's. And so Henna embarks on a quest to get herself a scholarship to this school in the hopes that once she's on campus, she'll be able to find the repository, break in, steal the seeds, and grow the plant that may save her papa's life. As you can imagine, complications ensue, first in the form of wisecracking, gender-fluid fellow 12-year-old P, who wants that scholarship to St. Basil's for their own reasons, and then in the form of frosty rich girl Laura Wendover, another 12-year-old that Henna and P are assigned to assist because she uses a wheelchair, and St. Basil's is a particularly wheelchair-unfriendly campus. The three end up forming an unlikely bond as they experience friendship for the first time in their lives. And as for how Henna's quest for the Nightwalker seeds turns out, well, you'll just have to read the book if you haven't already. The first seeds for The Girl from Earth's End planted themselves in my mind in 2018. I had been struggling for a year with a different novel draft that just wasn't working.
And I'd also just had a baby, my second in a 2-year span. And my mother was sick, having developed a neurological condition that would leave her unable to walk for the rest of her life. I found myself caught between 2 generations, responsible now for the welfare of 2 very little people, while also starting the difficult process of saying goodbye to someone who was reaching the end of their life. I decided to give up writing for 6 months, and it was such a huge relief that I knew I had made the right decision, taking a break from that other novel manuscript. But then, 2 weeks into my break, I got an idea. I was doing research for a family trip we were planning for later that year to the Azores, the isolated string of Portuguese islands in the mid-Atlantic Ocean. The Azores are known for having beautiful plant life and many formal gardens that were established generations ago and that you can still visit today. But I also learned that in the mid-1800s, the Azores were full of orange groves, and in fact grew more oranges than anywhere else in the world. There were even fast boats whose entire job it was to whisk the orange harvest off to mainland Europe, racing to get there first and fetch the highest prices for the first oranges of the season. But then, in the late 1800s, a blight moved through the Azores and destroyed the citrus industry there, killing off almost every last tree, and the industry never came back. When I read about this history, I wondered what happened to all of those fast boats that used to race the harvest to Europe. And that was when the first line of The Girl from Earth's End came to me. The orange boat doesn't carry oranges anymore. I decided that I would let myself play around with this new story idea just for fun. I started writing about a girl who grows up surrounded by plants, about a string of islands where citrus trees have gone extinct, about 2 men who never expect to become parents but do, and about their child facing the fact that no plant, no parent, and no living thing lives forever. I wanted to bring in the wonder of the natural world, of unexpected friendships, and of embracing your passions, all things that I think make life beautiful. And so I let myself steal a few minutes here and there when my baby was asleep in her stroller and I could duck into the garden down the street with my notebook. I took that trip to the Azores with my family, taking notes and finding even more inspiration for the setting of my story. Eventually, I hired a babysitter a few times a week so I could work on the book in earnest. And then a year later, my family moved into an RV full-time. We spent the next 2.5 years traveling around the continent, and I continued to work on the book when I could, though this is not a writing technique I would actually recommend to anyone. I spent much longer revising The Girl from Earth's End than I ever spent drafting it. I put it down for a bit when my mother passed away, but I came back to it in the end. My resolve to finish it and share it with readers is stronger than ever. And now, finally, it is a complete novel and a Judy Lopez Memorial Book Award honoree. I am so thrilled that the committee connected with the characters and the setting and the themes that I worked so hard to evoke in this story, and I thank you for this honor from the bottom of my heart.
Max Plink's life just got a lot more complicated. Trouble at home? Check. School bullies? Double check. Dental drama? Oh, you have no idea. Jawbreaker by Christina Wyman. Maximilia Adrina Plink, named for her paternal Italian great-grandmother who had terrible teeth. Max Plink has a Class 2 malocclusion, aka severe overbite, and has been wearing braces for a year. In the middle of 7th grade, her orthodontist adds a jawbreaker headgear that Max must wear during her non-school hours, including while she sleeps. Additionally, Max learns that jaw surgery is a very real possibility in her future, information which her parents have kept from her. Middle school is hard enough when you're almost 5'8" and have wild frizzy hair. But no, it is Max's teeth which have made her the object of bullying by some of her peers. Worse yet, her sister, a 6th grader, has aligned herself with Max's tormentors and continues the bullying at home. This leads to fights between the sisters, which their stressed parents are unable to deal with. They simply put blame on both girls, no matter what happened. Despite both parents working, the family lives paycheck to paycheck, and the girls witness their parents' increasingly frequent arguments about money, their father's drinking, and their mothers smoking. With her chaotic home life, Max is unable to rely on her family for support. Luckily, her best friend Shrin has her back, but Shrin hasn't been herself lately. There's the newspaper club. Max likes writing, but she got distracted from her assignments with the Jawbreaker and her family. The club is where she hears exciting news. Now is the time to enter New York's Rising Star Journalist competition. The catch? Submission is only by video essay, and Max is torn. Much as she wants to enter, she cannot face the thought of her teeth on view, online, forever. The story begins and ends with trips to Max's orthodontist. What happens between those two visits is the crazy ride of Max's increasingly complicated life. Max gradually learns how her parents' upbringing informed them and the way they are raising their daughters, how you don't know what might be happening in someone else's life, and finding the support that has been there for her if she were willing to ask for it, something which goes against her upbringing. Max's voice shines through as she works from being defined by others to, with the help of her allies, reclaiming herself, complicated teeth and all. Christina Wyman used her own life, teeth, experience, bringing together many themes: orthodontia, economic instability, generational trauma, the lack of resources, equity at school, family, and bullying into a story which is funny, heartbreaking, layered, touching, and ultimately hopeful. The members of the selection committee, one of whom had pediatric braces and wore headgear, and I are so pleased to name Christina Wyman's debut novel, Jawbreaker, as the 2024 winner of the Judy Lopez Memorial Award for Children's Literature.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for honoring Jawbreaker with the Judy Lopez Memorial Award for Children's Literature. I so wish I could be there with you in person because I really love being able to physically connect with people. But thank you for allowing me to accept this award from my little spot in Michigan. It is an honor. Thank you. Jawbreaker, I think, is a book that I've had inside me for a really long time. The main character, Max Plink, this is her, is really going through it. Early on in the book, she says, "It's open season on kids with a mouth like mine." And that means a few things. For one, Max requires intense orthodontic intervention, and she might actually need surgery to fix the way her jaws are aligned, a reality which has meant that Max is the butt of some very cruel jokes, many of which are instigated by her own sister. Even though braces are normal, many kids have braces, Max still feels quite alone in her experience, okay? And with Jawbreaker, I really wanted to create a story about a child who doesn't have a safe place to land, be it at home or at school. And I think that's something a lot of kids resonate with. I certainly resonated with that coming up as well. Not all children have emotionally supportive families that step in when difficulties arise. Many children actually have families that make things harder on them emotionally, and that reality is a pretty tough pill for most of us to swallow. The heartbreaking reality is also something that writing Jawbreaker has allowed me to highlight. So receiving the Judy Lopez Memorial Award really validates some childhood experiences that are still a bit culturally taboo to address in children's lit. Max represents everything about the kinds of books that I wish I would have had access to in the 80s and 90s. That's when I was coming up. Due to her physical appearance, she experiences the sort of bullying and harassment that would be considered illegal by today's standards. And also by today's standards, her parents are what might be considered emotionally neglectful. They're completely self-involved and checked out and doing next to nothing to nurture a positive relationship between Max and her sister. But most importantly, between Max and herself. So had I had access to books featuring the kinds of dynamics with the same intensity that narrates Max's daily life, I think I also would have felt more normal as a child. And even as I wrote Max's story, I had to remind myself that we now know as a culture that what she experiences is sadly common. And above all, I wanted a character who was able to find pockets of protection and nurturing and safety, despite the obstacles she faces at nearly every turn. And what she couldn't find at home, she eventually finds in friendship and teachers and the courage to face the world with the same face that at first makes her want to hide. So, thank you to the Women's National Book Association Los Angeles chapter for not only choosing Jawbreaker for the Judy Lopez Memorial Award, but for validating some of the kinds of experiences that children go through, but don't often see reflected back at them in the literature they read. Thank you for this. And I'm looking forward to our chat later on. See you soon.
Congratulations, Christina. And congrats to all the extraordinary winners of this year's Judy Lopez Memorial Award for Children's Literature. We want to, again, thank the publishers and the selection committee. You can find more information about the authors at judylopezaward.org, along with a link where you can purchase books. That wraps up another year of the Women's National Book Association recognizing great literature for kids. As good as this year was, I can't wait to see what inspiring stories authors will bring to us next year. But I, along with the rest of you, will just have to wait. I was delighted to be your host. Thank you again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next year.